being here. Thank you, Reverend Kathleen Moore. My name is Brooklyn Williams. I have the honor of serving as Chief of Education and Community Safety for Mayor Tao. And I want to thank you all for being here today, this evening, and for participating in this really important town hall. I also want to extend a special thank you to our host, St. John's Episcopal Church, for partnering with us and hosting us today. I will be your moderator for this evening's program. And the first thing we want to do is introduce Mayor Tao's full public safety leadership team. Each of these leaders oversees a critical component of Oakland's comprehensive public safety plan. This evening, you will get to hear from Mayor Sheng Tao, our Department of Violence Prevention Chief, Dr. Holly Joshi, our Oakland Police Department Chief, Floyd Mitchell, our Oakland Fire Department Chief, Damon Covington, as well as Macro Manager Elliot Jones. We'll also be hearing from our City Administrator, Mr. Justin Johnson, Assistant City Administrator, Mr. Harold Duffy, and our OakDOT Department of Transportation Director, Josh Rowan. Each of these leaders will be giving presentations. And after the presentations, I will facilitate a Q&A session. There are staff members around the room who will be passing out index cards. Can staff please raise your hands if you can look around, folks? These are the folks who will have index cards. If you have questions that you'd like to write down, and give them back to the staff, and then they will hand them to me. And we also have the questions that were submitted in advance. So thank you for those of you who registered ahead of time, who sent your questions. I'm going to be doing my best as your moderator this evening to strike a balance between sharing important information that we want to make sure that community gets, but also leaving time for the question and answer. So we'll be breaking up the Q&A sessions. We won't wait until the very end. We'll take them a little bit at a time. We want to make sure we get to as many questions as possible. However, if we're not able to get to every single question, it's really important that when you signed in or when you register that you provide an email address. If you signed in by hand, making sure that that's legible, that we can read it, so that we can follow up with any questions that didn't get answered this evening. And so we want to make sure that you registered, signed in, and that we have your email address. So with that, we're going to get right into it. Again, thank you for being here. We look forward to the discussion tonight. I'm excited to kick us off by introducing Mayor Sheng Tao. Mayor Sheng Tao, thank you. Hold on one second. Mayor Sheng Tao is one of the very strongest and most effective progressive leaders. Her family's story, escaping genocide, poverty, and abuse, has made her into a determined, empathetic leader. Her commitment to racial justice, building affordable housing, advocating for low-wage workers, and protecting tenants can be seen in her many accomplishments as a city council member, and drives her work to improve the lives of all of Oakland residents as Oakland's 51st mayor. Please give a warm welcome to our Mayor Sheng Tao.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you so much, Reverend, for allowing us to use this space. We really appreciate it, and I'm so excited to see that the bridge is nearing completion after what, over 10 years? That's right. That's how fast the city moves. With that being said, we know that when we do the work, or anywhere we go in life, we don't do it alone. We do it with a team, whether it's a village of people, whether it's our family or what have you. This is your village here, sitting up here. This is your family. These are the people who are helping me run this city. A lot of times people think that because I'm the mayor, I'm doing everything. Absolutely not. We have great directors, we have great chiefs that are helping with this job. And so with that being said, I want to get into the priorities of this administration. Under this administration, we take a comprehensive approach to how we address the many different complex issues in the city of Oakland. For example, under public safety, we have a four-pronged approach. That is having a robust police department, making sure that we are working with different agencies. We know that we don't have enough police officers. We can't afford them. But that doesn't mean that we use that as an excuse or reason not to ensure that our people feel safe. And so what we have done is we've leveraged these partnerships, which the chief will speak about in a little bit, how we work with CHP. You know, my office asking the governor to bring in the CHP patrol. You know, we have seen, and you probably have heard on the news, that he's sending more patrols over to the East Bay region, specifically Oakland. We also know that because we don't have the funds to increase the number of officers, we have to leverage technology. And so what I can tell you is that, you know, just on the surface, because again, the chief will go into this, leveraging technologies, meaning, you know, in the Department of Transportation, we had speed cameras. Automated speed cameras are going to go put are going to be put in place in areas like the Fruitvale, where a lot of people, that's our highest injury network area, right? A lot of pedestrians getting hit and what have you. And so the DOT director is going to speak about that in a little bit. You know, we have the flock cameras that are coming to Oakland. When I asked the interim chief, Chief Allison at the time, what is it that I can do to help combat crime? He said, we need real-time cameras, the flock cameras. But there's no way you can get this done, Mayor, is what he said. Because for far too long, Oakland residents do not want cameras in the city of Oakland. And so, you know, I talked to the governor's office, and they actually giggled when I said, can you please pay for some flock cameras for the city of Oakland? And so they giggled and they said, if you can get the city of Oakland residents and the Privacy Commission to approve cameras, sure, we'll get you some cameras. I didn't think that they thought that we were going to be able to do it. But I, along with the interim chief at the time, we worked with the Privacy Commission, I worked with the council members, and we came up with a medium. That medium is, yes, we can have cameras in the city of Oakland, real-time cameras, but then we will delete the data after 30 days if it's not being utilized in a criminal case. And so that is our new policy. We have new cameras coming in, about 480 cameras in the East Bay region. 290 of those cameras will be here in Oakland in hotspot areas working directly with OPD. Another thing is that, again, you know, when you call 911, you expect to be a response, right? And so we had to invest into our infrastructure, which has not been invested in, that I've learned. Once I came on board, I've learned that 911 dispatchers weren't invested in the infrastructure itself for decades. And so the city council and myself, we've invested $2.5 million. Not just that, but we changed the way that our dispatchers are hired. We bring them on as cohorts now, so they can really lean on each other, just like how we have academies for our fire department, for our police department, so they can lean on each other for emotional support. Being a 911 dispatcher, it is a lot of emotional distress. You're answering calls back to back on people's worst days. And so in that area, when I came in, there were probably over 10 vacancies in 911 dispatch. Now we only have 3 vacancies because of natural attrition, which we're constantly hiring for. Also in leveraging technology, my team is working with the FAA around larger drones, so that if there is a priority 1 call, let's say, you know, there is an active robbery taking place where there's a gun involved. If officers are preoccupied with other priority 1 calls, what we can do is set these drones up and start recording and then track the vehicle or the suspect if they're fleeing. So leveraging technology is key, but of course we want to ensure that we have more officers, and that means creating new streams of revenue. So that goes into the economic development piece of it. Of course, one more thing on public safety. When we talk about public safety, we also need to talk about violence prevention. How are we preventing violence in the community? Chief Joshi is going to speak a little bit about the changes that we've made in Department of Violence Prevention. Chief Joshi has a lot of background in regards to the City of Oakland and the work that she's doing. So for economic development, how many of you are property owners? How many of you are sick and tired of getting taxed by the city? How many of you are renters? I'm a renter. How many of you cannot buy a home because of the property taxes imposed by the city? There we go. So with that being said, for me, it is incredibly important that we find new revenue streams in order to serve our constituents without continuously going to property owners demanding that they pay up more, when it's already over $20,000, if not more, a year. And so that is why we have to invest in key areas that are underinvested. You probably have heard that we're selling our half to the African American Sports and Entertainment Group, our half of the Coliseum. The Coliseum has been underdeveloped for decades. This is the key area, especially being that the airport is so close, where we can invest a lot of money so that we can receive triple, quadruple that amount of money back into our general fund so that we can spend those dollars on actually serving our community. Instead of going out year after year saying, hey, pay $100 for this, pay $99 for that, because it adds up. And so what you're seeing is I'm planting the seed right now to actually create the economic development. So selling their half, we're gonna hear pretty soon that the Aids have sold their half to the same group. So now instead of having dual ownership, you'll have one ownership, right? The Oakland roots are still going to play there come next year. So the concession stands and what have you, and the workers there, they'll still continue to have jobs, right? But that whole corridor is our main priority to develop so that we can create new streams of funding. You also heard that in West Oakland, where it's underdeveloped as well and underserved, that we have the Oakland Baller Stadium. How many of you have been to a baller game? Do you like it? Yeah. Yes, absolutely. So if you haven't gone out to the Oakland Ballers game, go. It is amazing. And that is a birth child of mine working with community, working hand in glove with community. It was a community idea. There was 2 people who came up with the idea. I gave them a list of things to do and said, if you're serious, go find investors, go find this, that, this. This is what we need. They came back with the information within 2 to 3 months, and then the city stepped up to do our part. And now we have a Pioneer League team in the City of Oakland. This is also a revenue generator. So you really got to think outside of the box so that we can get Oakland to reach its potential. And of course, our last but not least, the comprehensive approach also touches base on Oakland fresh and clean streets. We know our streets are really dirty, and so what you'll start seeing is RVs that are parked on the sidewalk. That's illegal. That's an ADA issue. You're going to get hooked up and you're going to get towed, okay? We're seeing that, in regards to the illegal dumping, we're going to use these new high-tech cameras, the flock cameras that we're getting. We're going to be able to see crime happening in real time. The idea is once we get these cameras, I want Oakland to be the central location, the central city for East Bay, for its real-time crime center, where officers from the different neighboring cities can come in to help us man these cameras and watch for crime in real time, including illegal dumping. City Hall and community partnership is key when it comes to clean streets. So we're out there with Oakland Fresh. We invite folks to come out and help us clean the streets, and then we will be enforcing. So that means once the flock cameras go up, you'll start seeing cars being towed if we catch them illegally dumping in Oakland. In regards to our unhoused community, you all have heard that the Supreme Court decision was passed, meaning that the restraints in regards to how we remove encampments are changing. However, we're doing a hybrid version. We're going to go out and still offer services and still offer shelter. However, if you do not take shelter and you don't take those resources, you've got to go. You have to go. Because at the end of the day, I was homeless before myself, and I can tell you, not once was I ever looking for a piece of dirt to pitch a tent. It is not dignified, and it is not safe. What I was looking for is affordable housing. When I first came into office as your 51st mayor, I took that very seriously. And what we did was we shut down the largest encampment in Northern California, and that is Wood Street. It was blocks and blocks, hundreds and hundreds of people. We shut it down, offered everybody shelter. 85% took the shelter. And then not just that, but we built up 100% affordable housing, over 100 of units of those. And so this is some of the work that we're doing in the city. I'm going to stop there so that my team here can also go through their presentation, but please, we welcome all questions that you have. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mayor. With that, we're going to move to our Chief of the Department of Violence Prevention, Dr. Holly Joshi. She's going to do a presentation. I know the Department of Violence Prevention is one of the newer departments. A lot of folks are not necessarily aware of what the role of the DVP is, and so she will be taking us through not just that, but also the specifics around what she's implementing. Dr. Holly Joshi has vast leadership experience and a track record of successfully implementing evidence-based violence prevention and intervention strategies. Prior to taking on leadership of the Department of Violence Prevention in December, she led nonprofit organizations focused on improving community health and safety, and spent 14 years at the Oakland Police Department. While there, she held various roles, including the head of the Vice and Child Exploitation Unit and Chief of Staff. She was a member of the executive team that successfully implemented the ceasefire strategy in partnership with community leaders over 10 years ago. She's an Oakland native, widely recognized for expertise in the intersections of gender-based violence and gun violence, and her deep collaborative relationships across the city. Please give a warm welcome to our Chief of the Department of Violence Prevention, Dr. Holly Joshi.
Thank you, Brooklyn. Thank you for having us. I'm so happy to be back working for the City of Oakland, y'all. I went away for 9 years. So I worked for 14 years at the police department, and then I went away running community-based organizations for 9 years. And the reason I agreed to come back, I came back in December, so I've been back for about 8 months now, was because this administration told me that they were completely committed to a holistic wraparound approach to crime prevention and intervention, and namely that they were prioritizing a reinvestment and a focused deterrent strategy that we all know as ceasefire. So that's what all they needed to say in order for me to come back. Because as Brooklyn mentioned, I was at OPD and on the executive team back in 2011 when we originally began to implement ceasefire. And for those of you that were here and that remember, ceasefire from 2012 to 2019 resulted in over 40% reductions in homicides and shootings. It is the most studied, most researched gun violence strategy in the country. So, you can't argue with the numbers, right? It worked in Chicago, it worked in Boston, and most importantly, it worked in Oakland. And I think what's also most important about the strategy is it wasn't a strategy developed by or advocated for by the city. It was actually brought up by faith-based leaders in community who got on a plane and went to Chicago to see what they were doing in that city, and then advocated to bring it back to Oakland in 2011, 2012. And that's when we first adopted it. So I came back specifically to support the city to re-implement ceasefire. Because unfortunately, right around the time of the pandemic, 2020, we really started divesting from the strategy. And it's one of those strategies that if you do not have fidelity to the model, very strict fidelity to the model, it's just not gonna work. So the city was essentially doing ceasefire in name only, both at the police department level and at the Department of Violence Prevention level. So I feel extremely honored to be back in the city at this critical time during public safety, doing public safety and re-implementing the strategy. So let me just tell you all a little bit about the Department of Violence Prevention specifically. We are only 5 years old, so a baby in the big scheme of the city departments. And we're the brainchild of community members and prior council member Lynette McElhaney, who really advocated for the City of Oakland to come up with a Department of Violence Prevention. And it's not just something that the City of Oakland is doing, it's a field. There are over 50 Department of Violence Preventions in this country. They're called OVPs, Offices of Violence Prevention, so I always say we're the only DVP in the country, but really there's 50. And I met about 50 of those leaders recently in Washington, D.C. at the White House when Vice President Kamala Harris called us all for the first ever national meetings of Offices of Violence Prevention a couple of months back. So VP Harris has an Office of Gun Violence Prevention, it's new, and they're flooding communities currently with $200 million in grant money to fund what we call community violence intervention. So community violence intervention is the approach and the strategy that the Department of Violence Prevention is implementing in this city. Like I said, we've only been around for 5 years, and quite honestly, only the past 8 months that I've been in office have we been specifically focused on those at the center of violence. When I came in and I looked in our database to see who we were serving, it really was a hodgepodge of people from across the city. Of course, people that need services. There's a lot of people in the city that need services. But in terms of making quick and significant reductions in violence in this city, we know what works, and that is centering those people that are driving violence, and it's a very small number. It's about 350 people at any given time. So my current charge at the DVP and what I've been working on for the past 9 months is to make sure that we in our community-based organizations are serving those most at risk of imminent violence. Not violence in 10 years, not violence in 15 years. OFCY and Parks and Recs and other city agencies do a good job of that. So we need to really stay in our lane and focus on those at imminent risk of violence. So we're focused on reducing homicides and shootings, reducing gender-based violence, and reducing levels of trauma associated with those violences. And as I explained, the ceasefire strategy is focused deterrence. It is evidence-based, the most evidence-based gun reduction strategy in the country. It requires cross-sector collaboration. So the DVP works with the police department, with probation, with the district attorney's office, with faith-based leaders and community. I think this is a Faith in Action church, right? You guys are a part of Faith in Action? Genesis, okay. So many, many faith-based leaders at the table, including Faith in Action. And again, we center those at the highest risk of violence. The interventions that we're utilizing at the DVP are very, very specific. We know what works, and so we need to implement those things. So we utilize a case management model that's extremely intensive and uses credible messengers. And what I mean by credible messengers are those folks that have deep Oakland roots, strong community connections and trust, and have previously been either gang or group involved or incarcerated themselves. So we all know why. Credible messengers are the folks that can go up to another person or go up to a young person who's currently trapped in cycles of violence and say, I've been there, and I've come out on the other side. And that is our intention at all times, which is to show people that there is a way off the hamster wheel of violence, and that this person that is going to walk the walk with you, which we call life coaches, is a living, breathing example of the fact that you can make it off the cycle of violence and to the other side. So that intensive life coaching model involves daily contact with our clients that are currently experiencing cycles of violence. It includes seeing them several times per week and coming up with a client-driven life map. So we sit with the clients and really do a deep dive into what are their goals. And sometimes those goals are very basic. I want to be alive in 30 days. Okay, how do we keep you alive in 30 days? Sometimes it means we have to relocate them out of Oakland. Sometimes it means that we just have to get them re-enrolled in school, get them a job training, keep them busy all day. So it's very much individualized supports and services with the same main goals, which is to keep clients safe and healthy, to prevent recidivism, and reduce the footprint of the criminal justice system, while at the same time reducing violent crime. So far this year, and I'm going to say this with a huge caveat, which is I know and we all know and meet weekly about the fact that violent crime in this city is still extremely too high. We meet weekly and we deeply know and respect the fact that you all are not feeling safe in the city. At the same time, since we re-implemented ceasefire and a focused deterrent strategy in January, violent crime, shootings and homicides are down. Homicides are down by 15%, shootings are down by over 30%. I don't say that to brag, I don't say that to try to convince you of anything. I say it to let you know that that's the data that we are watching to see if the ceasefire strategy still works in this city. Because the violent crime has changed so much that the strategy no longer works, and we need to know that so that we can pivot. So we're watching it every week to make sure that the strategy is consistently working, and so far it is. And we understand we need to keep our foot on the gas and keep moving. I know that my time is coming to an end, and the way that Brooklyn is looking at me, I'm surprised that the alarm hasn't gone off yet. Make sure I made all my main points to you.
Yeah, 1 minute.
1 minute, okay. So again, the expected outcomes from us implementing these strategies in-house with our in-house city workers is that we are expecting reduced affiliation with gangs and groups, reduced perpetration of gun violence, reduced victimization, and reduced recidivism. In addition to us having a direct service team that are city workers that are deployable resource that I can deploy and control, we also give about $15 million out to community-based organizations doing similar work. So many of the community-based organizations you all may know, Courage, Youth Alive, BOSS, and gender-based violence organizations like Bay Area Women Against Rape, Family Violence Law Center, etc. We're also working deeply with them, monitoring their use of city resources, helping them have fidelity to their models, and collecting data. So we will have a data report coming out within the next month or so that talks about the $15 million investment that came from you all's Measure Z dollars, and we'll make that will be publicly available on our website. So thank you all. I'm going to turn the mic back to Brooklyn.
Perfect timing. Thank you, Chief. And thank you once again for joining our team and hitting the ground running. I know, speaking of which, you're going to have to hit the ground running to leave for a meeting. So thank you for your time. We are going to move forward with introducing our Oakland Police Chief, Mr. Floyd Mitchell, who will be doing a presentation as well, and then we'll get to some questions that you all have about safety. Chief Floyd Mitchell began his career as a patrol officer with the Kansas City, Missouri Police Department. After 25 years of impeccable service with Kansas City, he accepted the police chief position for the city of Temple, Texas. In 2019, Mitchell was appointed as the 23rd police chief for the city of Lubbock, Texas, where he served until September of 2023. Chief Mitchell is a veteran of the United States Air Force. He has also earned both his BSA and MBA degrees in business administration from Baker University and is a graduate of the Certified Public Manager Program administered by Texas State University. He is a graduate of the 236th Federal Bureau of Investigations, National Academy, Montecito, Virginia, and the Police Executive Research Forum's Senior Management Institutes for Policing at Boston College. Man is well traveled. We are welcoming him to Oakland. Please welcome Chief Wade Mitchell.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for that warm welcome. Appreciate you guys very much. Very excited to be here, very excited to be part of the Oakland Police Department. I've been here just over 3 months and had the opportunity to meet a large number of not only our community members and community leaders, but also a lot of the members of the Oakland Police Department. And how I want to start off is really by telling you that you have a very good police department here in Oakland. They are constitutional and procedurally just police department. They are a very young police department, so they're learning a lot. They're learning a lot day by day. But you have a very good police department. I think that's important for everyone to understand. You also have over 200 non-sworn civilian professionals that work for our police department. They do everything from our communications, answering our 911 calls, dispatching their 911 calls. They do our crime scene techs. They do our DNA testing. They run our records units. I have a director on my staff who reports to me. So we also have a pretty large civilian staff. So I think that's important for everyone to understand that it's not only the 692 police officers that you have, but you have over 200 non-sworn civilians on your department as well. Wanted to talk about our summer safety plan. And our public safety plan that we kicked off this summer pretty much as soon as I got here. And what that is, it piggybacks on the Department of Violence Prevention and our ceasefire strategy here in Oakland. And it's a comprehensive plan that we try to touch everything that we can in regards to making our community safe. In a couple of words, our summer safety plan and public safety plan is meant to do one thing: reduce violent crime, reduce the number of homicides and the number of aggravated assaults or severe injury crimes that happen. And just as Dr. Joshi talked about, we have reduced our violent crimes when it comes to murders, aggravated assaults, sexual assaults, or rapes and robberies by over 15% this last year. And I think that's very important for everyone to understand. I know that you don't feel safe because what you see on the news every day is talking about crime within the city of Oakland. But what we're doing is working. The strategies that the mayor has put in place is working. It's going to take time. We didn't get this problem overnight. We're not going to solve it overnight. But I think to beat the drum steadily and continue to do what we're doing right now will show its dividends as we move forward. So I think that's important. How do we get here? We get here by connecting the dots, and that's where our Crime Gang Intelligence Center comes into play. What we do is when we have violent crimes, shootings, robberies, and things like that, the detectives respond to those type of crimes, those violent crimes. They respond out there to get meaningful intelligence information in regards to suspect information, victim information. We do area canvases to look for any video tapes that we made, video footage that may be out there. It will help us solve the crime. So it's a big thing to connect those dots. We also use our NIBIN unit to track guns and which guns are used in certain crimes. So when we stop someone and they have a gun on them, we can identify whether that gun was used in a different crime. So I think that's important. And we use our relationships through our task force officers with the FBI, the DEA, ATF, and the U.S. Marshals to help us not only identify suspects that are creating these crimes within our community and creating this harm, but they help us identify and track these folks down. So I think that's very important. The Criminal Investigations Division, these are the detectives that work for the Oakland Police Department day in and day out, putting these cases together, putting good cases together to present to our DA's office, whether it be the local county DA's office or whether it be the FBI, or the state attorney's office, or the DOJ. They work hard. You have some good officers here, and we're going to continue to support those folks as we do this. The other big issue that we have that has been established in the culture of the Bay is these sideshows. And I have learned very quickly very quickly of being here that this is a major part of the culture of this East Bay. It is a dangerous culture that we've identified in the Bay Area, and we're working hard to try to curb this activity. We have a sideshow detail that goes every Friday and Saturday night. And this is something that is done on overtime, and we assign officers to these details to try to prevent these sideshows as best as possible. We work with the City of Oakland's DOT. My folks work with Josh in regards to trying to identify ways that we can really design these intersections to try to prevent this activity from happening. And it's a work in progress, and it's going to continue to be a work in progress, but I want you to understand that every weekend we have officers out there gathering the intelligence of where these sideshows are going to be and working day and night to try to prevent these sideshows. So please don't think that these incidents are not being addressed each and every day, or we're not spending resources and funds to try to reduce those. Okay. It's hard not seeing the slides when they're in front of you, so that makes you real time. You did a great job, boys. Gold star for you tonight. High visibility, that's the next big thing. You know, using our special resource officers, using our crime reduction team officers, using our foot patrol, and using our trust building officers to make sure that there are visible patrols out in the neighborhoods. That is on top of the officers that are assigned to the 36 beats that our city is broken down into. So it's important for you to understand that I know our response time isn't ideal where we want it to be. But you know, we are a department that needs to be larger than what we are, but the officers are assigned to each beat to cover every sector of the City of Oakland. And I think it's important for everyone to understand that we prioritize our calls from priority 1, 2, and 3 calls, and depending on what type of call it is, that dictates the response, whether it's a code 1 response with red lights and sirens, or if it's a priority 3 response that can be delayed. So if you have a major car crash with injuries, that's going to be a code 1 response, or if it's a robbery in progress, or if it's a shooting or something like that, that's going to be a code 1 response. If your car gets broken into and the subject's already gone, that's going to be a priority 3 or priority 4 response, and it's going to be a delayed response. And you have to understand that depending on what's going on in the city, throughout the entire city, your call may get pushed back if it's a non-priority 1 call. This is a large metropolitan city with over almost 500,000 within the city and millions within the metropolitan statistical area. So you have to understand that we have a lot of crime that occurs here, and our officers are responding to those crimes based on those priorities. So it's not that we are intentionally putting you off with other things that have popped up that are a higher priority, and we will get to you, and we're working on that. That's something that we're working on, looking at how we can divert calls to where you can take some of those calls online to try to alleviate your pain of sitting there waiting for an officer to respond. But if there's evidence of things like that, we will have an officer respond to that. We already talked about our special resource section. Collaboration with our other agencies. Talking about violent crime and human trafficking, working with our local and state entities. One of the things that we have down here is the Blade, or International Avenue. We know that is a high trafficking area for human trafficking. And that's another area to where we have a detail that works that area each week in an undercover assignment to try to identify those who are patronizing prostitution and those who are promoting prostitution, the pimps that are out there. You will see here within the next couple of weeks a large surge that we are going to be having out there on the Blade to try to identify these subjects that are promoting prostitution and some of the victims that are being prostituted out there, to try to get some larger, higher class charges put on these people so we can put them away and get them off our streets to help make our streets better. So I think that's important as well. Kind of already talked about this, just our partnerships, whether it be with DOT as we talk about sideshows, or our partnership with Macro, and I know the Chief's going to talk about Macro a little bit, in working with our homeless encampments, and working with DVP and all of our other partners to make sure that we're doing everything we can to make Oakland as safe as we possibly can. Just know that our office and the police department works with all the federal partners in regards to identifying and apprehending individuals that are committing crimes, and when we can have them charged at a higher level, we do everything we can. The use of technology, the mayor talked about this a little bit, you know, the installation of our 290 flock cameras that are in the city of Oakland, that's just only a part of the over 400 cameras that the Highway Patrol is putting in to help us with that. To go along with that, we have over 19 drones that our officers use on a daily basis. We're also looking at drones as a first responder program, and where we can actually stage drones throughout the city, and based on what type of call crime comes in, we can launch that drone and get eyes on the situation as soon as possible to help us in identifying potential suspects leaving that area. So I will stop there because I know there's going to be tons of questions, and I've heard the alarm go off. So we'll just stop right there, and I'll answer the rest of the questions.
Thank you, Chief. All right, Chief Mitchell, everyone. Keep the mic. Chief, we're going to keep rolling with you. We do have a number of questions about crimes. The first couple I'm just going to hand to you. Oh, yeah, thank you. So lots of warm welcome. Welcome to Oakland. Thank you for being here, all of that. So this question is asking you to compare and contrast to your other experiences. How do you see the public safety situation in Oakland compared to others that you've served? And the second part of that is, what challenges here have you seen successfully overcome elsewhere?
Just how I started off, when you look at Oakland, to me it's very comparable to the city of Kansas City, Missouri. Very large, very diverse metropolitan city that struggles with its violent crime. And as you look at how we implemented ceasefire here and some of the successes that we've seen, not only in the time that I've been here, but even before it was in 2012 to 2019. It's a very successful strategy, and it's showing its dividends right now. I think if we continue down this path and we continue to give people avenues to get out of the criminal lifestyle, it will continue to show dividends as we move forward.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I moved that light's getting right in the eye.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, and then the next one is, there's a couple of questions about staffing. I know this is something we talked about a lot before you came on, as you came on, your staffing study. A couple of different folks want to know the status of that and where that stands.
Yeah. Currently, right now, we have approximately 692, 94 police officers on our department. With the current budget, we are attritioning down to 678. That's what we were budgeted to, 678. Along with that budget, though, the council and the mayor has budgeted for 3 academy classes. Right now, we have the 194th class that's in session right now. They've been in session for approximately 2.5, almost 3 months. This has 29 cadets in it. 28 of them are ours, are Oakland, and 1 of them belongs to the city of Alameda. Our academy lets them put their people in our class as well. But we charge them for it, though, so we make it anyway. We do have a staffing study going on right now. The Office of Inspector General has commissioned a staffing study for the Oakland Police Department. We should get the results of that staffing study at the end of the year. I don't think it's going to be a surprise to anyone that it's going to tell us that we probably need more officers than what we have right now. So once we have that document in hand, when we sit down from a budgetary standpoint, when we sit down with the city administrator, the council, and the mayor to talk about what we need to do and what we need to prioritize, we will have that document in hand and move from there.
Great. Okay, I think some of these others, you can have a seat, Chief, and then maybe the mayor might answer some of these or other folks as well. So related to staffing, let's just stick to that theme, is there a plan to increase our police force? And if so, what does that look like specifically? If it means having to make reductions in other departments, what's the temperature for that?
Yeah, so right now we're funded for 678. We have about 692. Coming in, we know that we consistently have very low numbers when it comes to our police unit. And so this is part of the economic development piece of it. Otherwise, we would have to pull from other areas, right? And what other areas, as we're running the city, you know, we have parks that we have to tend to, we have programmings that we tend to. And so what we're looking at as we're coming up on the biannual budget cycle is we're starting early. And I would implore you to really work with your council members, because this is one area where the council members have all the authority, which is passing a balanced budget. And they're going to be passing a budget. Again, you know, I propose a possible budget that they can adopt, but ultimately they'll shift things around, move things around, and pass a balanced budget by June 30th. And so I would recommend that you all stay connected with your council members and make sure that they hear your calls for whatever it is that you feel they should fund in regards to services. Just know that, you know, of course our public safety personnel, they are expensive, however, they are frontline and we need them, you know, and so the give and takes are really the conversation that we have to have.
Thank you, Mayor.
Oh, I also want to say that there is a updated Measure Z coming up. It's not going to be called Measure Z anymore, but it is an update to legislation that property owners already pay for, which funds about 35 positions for our OPD. That renewal is on your ballot. And so that renewal, the language says that the minimum threshold for OPD must be kept at 700. And so if that new ballot measure passes, then our minimum is no longer 678, it would be 700.
All right. We have a couple of questions. So for those of you who have staffing questions, I clustered those all. We've heard responses from both the chief and the mayor, one around where we are and one around resourcing. So these next couple of questions are about folks who are committing crimes. The first question is about wondering how many come from outside of Oakland. If you have any idea of how many, what percentage of folks coming here to commit crime are from outside the city.
Yes, this question came up a few times throughout my short time here. But yeah, we do have a pretty large number of individuals that come from outside of our city to commit crime in Oakland. We're not quite sure why that is. I know there's speculation on several different fronts. But yeah, it's not all Oakland folks that are committing crimes within Oakland. And I think if you went outside the city of Oakland, you'd find the same thing in the other cities where they'd say, yeah, it's not all their residents committing those crimes. I know we're addressing those. One of the things we do when we stop someone or arrest someone, we identify, you know, what's their home address, and you know, try to determine why they chose Oakland to come out and commit their crimes. But yeah, we do get individuals from other neighboring jurisdictions that come over here to commit crime, especially as it comes to our sex trafficking down on the blade. We see them coming from all over the United States down here, and that's part of the problem.
Thank you, Chief. A couple more, and then we'll get back and I'll introduce the city administrator. This one is about, and this is for the mayor and the chief and or myself, why aren't repeat offenders not being jailed? So what's your take on repeat offenders who are being released?
Yeah, I think this kind of goes along with our ceasefire strategy. What we're trying to do, what the ceasefire strategy does is, one, we identify those people that are those individuals that are basically locked into a cycle of crime. We try to give them a way out. But if they choose not to take or accept this help, then from my standpoint, they need to be held accountable for what they're doing, the harm that they're committing to our community. And I think it's important for people to understand that we know people are going to make mistakes in their lives. And hopefully it's the mistake that doesn't cost anyone else their lives or prevents that person from evolving. But there are individuals that they wake up thinking about how much harm can I do to our community. And those people need to be held accountable for the crimes that they commit. Our officers are out there working hard each and every day to identify those folks, make arrests, put cases together, and present those to our DAs and to our Attorney General's office. So from my standpoint, yes, we're here to help you if you want help, but if you don't want that help, you're going to be held accountable to the fullest extent of the law. I don't know, Mayor, if you want to jump in on that.
So I want to just say that our officers are doing a great job apprehending. Coming in, it was a highly demoralized department. All of the departments were demoralized. I'll tell you, if you want to hear that story, come afterwards and I'll let you know. But they were demoralized because they kept seeing the same people they arrest out on the streets, right? And sometimes, the suspects will even laugh at them and say, I'll see you tomorrow. And that's infuriating, right? And so a couple of different things. I think that, some people say, there needs to be a whole reform in regards to state policy. Just know that our officers, we do what we do, which is apprehend suspects, collect evidence, and return it over. If they're juveniles, we turn it over to probation. Probation now has the role of saying, yes, we'll charge. If they charge, then they send that over to the district attorney's office with the evidence. And so what we're seeing is that I believe that there needs to be stronger programming at probation because many of these offenders are juveniles. And so we're seeing that a lot of the juveniles are being released. And I don't know, call me old school, but when I was growing up, if I did something bad, my parents gave me a whooping, right? Because there's a cost-benefit analysis here. If there is no cost and it's all benefits, then there will continue to be the same action, right? And so, again, the juveniles, they do go through probation first. If there's charging, they go to DA. If they are adults, we, again, apprehend the suspect, we collect the evidence, we hand it over to the district attorney's office. It is up to the district attorney's office if they will charge. Even if they do charge, they work with the judge. So the judges have a role in this too. They work with the judge to see if they're going to plea out or what that would look like, because it's my understanding that they don't have enough judges, so many of the cases get pled out with minimal time. So there's all these different tentacles that come into play, and our officers, I tell you, they wake up, they put on their uniform, and they're out there, and yes, they are arresting the same people over and over, but our mantra is, we're gonna do our job. We're going to do our job, but we need to educate the community so that you all can hold the different tentacles accountable for the role that they play in all of this ecosystem.
Okay, thank you both. And I think I would just add that work partnership with the other agencies, whether that be federal or state, are also key to addressing that. And the chief has talked to that already. I'm trying to cluster some as they're coming in. I think there's one about, understanding that we only have so many officers right now. You talked about the partnerships with other agencies. I also know that we've done work to try to get everyone with a badge and a gun out on the street doing police work. So can you talk about some of those efforts to ensure that we're minimizing desk jobs and things that anybody can do, whereas badge and a gun gets to the street?
As we talk about, this civilianization of our police department, again, we have over 200 non-sworn professionals in our police department. And as we are attritioning down, we're taking a hard look at what actions that we have going on right now within our department that we're going to have to move officers out of. And those are tough decisions to make, because it has to do with, how many people do we need in recruiting and background? How many people do we need in the OK program? How many people do we need in this area over here? And as we attrition down, and we are attrition down, we lose about 4 to 6 officers a month right now. And even though we have 20 some odd folks in the academy, we're going to lose more than that by the time they graduate out of the academy and get off break-in. So those tough decisions are being made, and they will continue to be made until the foreseeable future. So it is something that we look at on a daily basis.
All right, thanks, Chief. There's a few questions about non-violent crimes, thieving, burglaries. Can you speak to what the department is doing to address those crimes as well? I know that there's an intersection with those who do the shooting, also participate in property crimes.
Yeah.
Whatever you want to speak to.
Yeah, a lot of the non-violent property crimes, and that's, so when you look at our statistical numbers, right now it's showing us down around 30% overall crime within the City of Oakland. A lot of that, and I know there's some question in regards to our statistics. We know that you can report some of those crimes online, and then there's a delay in that reporting. So what I can tell you is, yes, we have seen a reduction in the amount of property crimes, and we know that there's a delay, but we're going to continue to work to shorten that delay so we can get real good numbers. But when you talk about our violent crimes, I'm very confident in our violent crimes. But when you look at these property crimes, you see these guys out there doing multiple burglaries a night. It's not like they just go hit one car and go back home. They hit every car on the block. And that's one of the things that we're trying to do and working with the prosecutor is saying, hey, we want to put all these cases together so you can prosecute these folks on that specific crime and hold them accountable for that, as opposed to it not reaching a monetary threshold because of how the law is written. So they are causing a lot of harm to our city, and that's one of the things that we are all going to experience. All of us in this room may not be a victim of violent crime, but I would imagine, more than 80% of this room may have been a victim of property crime. I have been a victim of property crime, so I understand exactly how you feel about it. And it's serious. Again, it goes back to one, putting good cases on folks and holding them accountable for this to deter future actions.
All right, we're gonna do a few more about this topic, and then we're gonna move, and then we can try to come back at the end if we haven't run out of time. Thank you, Chief, but we do have a few more. So I'll just answer this one really quickly. How do you identify people who participate in ceasefire? Folks who participate in ceasefire are what we call, they self-select. And the way that they self-select is either being shot, shooting someone, or being close to someone who's been shot or shooting. That's how we identify who's at the center of violence, because they're obviously in the middle of gunfire. And so that's how folks are identified, and that's done weekly at a meeting called a shooting review, where every single week, all the partners come together, plus PD, review every single shooting that happened that week, and then identify folks that we want to reach out to in order to prevent further shootings. There's a question, I want to do two more. There's one about the data. Why is there so much controversy about the crime data? So anything, I know you spoke to this a little bit, but in terms of why is it so controversial? It's a question that I had. I feel like when we came in and crime was on the rise, everyone looked at the data like it was accurate. And then we started getting it down, and all of a sudden we don't trust the data. So what can you say to me?
Yeah, and I alluded to it a little earlier. I think it's, like I said, it's understanding that we have an online reporting system. So if your car gets broken into and there's no suspect there, as opposed to you waiting for 2 or 3 hours for someone to come by and take that report, you can make that report online. That report still has to get reviewed by an officer who goes in to our records management system, looks at it, and classifies it correctly. There is a delay in that reporting system right now. It is something that we're working on, and it is really a staffing issue from this standpoint. But understand, it will get categorized and it will get counted. But just as Chief Williams of Brooklyn talked about, is the data is important for us to communicate what's going on within our community. And I know there's been questions about the data just in the short time that I've been here. But what I want to make sure that is perfectly clear is that I am not going to compromise my values or my professional or personal ethics by telling you something that I cannot verify. And what I can verify at this point in time, based on the information that my people have given to me, is that our violent crime data is solid. Yes, there is a delay in our property crimes, but our violent crime data is solid. So you can trust those numbers. I'm not going to do anything to jeopardize, like I said, my personal or professional integrity to give you false numbers for some unknown reason.
Thank you, Chief. Okay, last one for now, and then we'll try to get to some more. So the community support bullet, I know we ran out of time, so you kind of went through that one, but how are you working with community groups, business improvement districts, property managers, NCPCs, all?
You just said it all.
This person is very important. Churches, merchant groups, how do we partner with the community?
Yeah, I think it's very, very important for us to, one, me being new to the community, just getting out and going to churches and meeting our faith-based leaders, going to the chamber meetings and talking to the business leaders, and just meeting people out. This weekend, it was funny, I walked from my place to the police headquarters, and I was stopped by 3 separate couples saying, "Oh, I saw you on TV," and I was like, "Oh, what'd you see? What'd you think?" And we sit there and have a conversation about crime and about what's going on, and luckily, each of them were like, we're pulling for you, we wish the best for you, there's a lot of work to be done. But I think, one, it's making that connection and letting people know that I'm invested in this community, I'm invested in the safety of this community, I live in this community, I live, what I would call inside the loop, to where I can walk back and forth to my office. And I want my family to feel safe in this community, so trust me when I say I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that we all have a safe place to live, work, and play. But it's building those relationships and working together to make sure that we are doing everything we can to keep each other safe and report crime and again, basically pulling all in the same direction.
Thank you, Chief. All right, so we covered some good ground around crime and safety. We're going to move into other questions that you all have or topics that you would like to hear more information around. There are some of you who wrote questions that are combining, for example, illegal dumping or something around crime, and so we'll get to those kind of more combined questions once we see everybody's presentations. So thank you once again to our chiefs and our mayor, including firefighter, paramedic, fire engineer, lieutenant of fire, captain of training, battalion chief, special ops, department fire chief, and most recently our interim fire chief. Chief Covington's educational accomplishments include a Bachelor of Arts in Sociology from Sonoma State University and a master's degree in Executive Public Administration from Golden Gate University. Chief Cov was the president of the Oakland Black Firefighters Association from 2016 to 2022 and previously served as the chair of the Rodeo City Fire Protection District, respectively. Additionally, he currently serves as an adjunct professor for Mayor College, where he lectures in the undergraduate fire science program. Please give a warm welcome to Chief Damon Covington from our fire department.
Thank you. Good evening. Appreciate the opportunity to come speak with you. I'd be remiss not to express my gratitude to the mayor and our public safety team. Very much a group that is passionate about making you Oaklanders proud to be Oaklanders. I grew up here in Oakland. I've been in the fire department for 24 years. You have a fantastic fire department here. It's truly an honor to lead it. We have just a little bit about the department. Most people think the fire department consists of 24 engines and 7 trucks, because that's what you see going down the street. And when you call 911, which is most of the time that people interact with the fire department, that's what shows up. But the fire department really is made up of a multitude of almost 700 individuals in multiple parts, multiple divisions of the fire department. So the division you see most, operations division, those are our boots on the ground. Those are our firefighters who show up for 911 calls, structure fires, grass fires, you name it. We are all risk mitigation, meaning if you call 911, the fire department is going to show up and we're going to figure something out that can help that situation. You have a very, very passionate group of people who serve you in the Oakland community. We're one of the oldest departments in the city. We've been around since 1869. As you can see on the slide, we have 25 stations, and we run, that's actually not correct, we run 85,000 calls a year. So we're a very busy department. So some of the departments that make up, some of the divisions that make up our fire department are operations division. We also have an EMS division, which is our medical division. We have our fire prevention bureau, who you'll see out doing inspections, which we'll talk about. I know I'm in the high fire severity zone, so we got to talk wildland. But that's through our fire prevention bureau. We have our emergency medical services division, who does all of our emergency medical for the entire city of Oakland, not just the fire department. And we have our newest member, our newest wing of the Oakland Fire Department, which is macro. And I brought my friend Elliot with me today, who's the macro guru. We'll talk a little bit about that as well. But there are multiple divisions of our fire department, and what I want you to know most is each one of them serves a very serious and very important role in the overall fire safety of our city. So when we talk about high fire severity zones, which we are in now, which run throughout the hills of our city of Oakland, we are working diligently to make sure that we're fire safe. We're making sure that we have the goats. Has anybody seen the goats? The goats are our friend. The goats are very expensive friends, I might add. But we couldn't do the work without them because they're hitting a lot of the areas that we just can't get to. But we do have true partnerships when it comes to Fire Safe City. We want to make sure that we're doing our due diligence to cut back the vegetation, to make sure that we're having ingress and egress clear for any time there is inevitably a natural disaster, we're prepared. We have one of the most comprehensive vegetation management units in the country. We worked on it for 7 years. We recently got it passed through council, and now we're in the process of implementing it fully. In that regard, I know the mayor said we can't ask for money from our citizens, but we're gonna ask for money for our citizens. We have a, taking up an offer, passing the hat. No, we are, in order for our vegetation management unit to be fully effective, we know we have lots that need to be cleared. We have dead and dying eucalyptus trees that need to be falled. We have a lot of work to do. And in order to do that work, it costs money because we have to hire out for a lot of that work through contractors. So you'll see on your ballot in November, we're asking for $99 per parcel, just of the people in the high fire severity zone. And that may seem a little unfair, but those are the lots that we have to clear. And we have to clear them because if we want to be a truly fire safe city, you can do your due diligence. You can clear your lot. You can create defensible space around your home. You can do everything we're asking you to do. But if no one built a house next to you and that lot is overgrown and there's a eucalyptus there, that could be a bridge from the fire coming down the street to your home, what have we really accomplished? So until we can fully incorporate our vegetation management plan, we're not truly as fire safe as we can be. So we are asking for help. It truly will be beneficial to everyone who lives in a high fire severity zone, and it will be beneficial to the city of Oakland as a whole. So we hope for your yes vote. If you don't vote yes, I won't know. I want to talk a little bit about Macro. Macro is our mobile assistance community responders of Oakland. Macro was invented 2 years ago through the direction of Elliot Jones in our EMS division with the goal of truly helping take away mental health calls from OPD and Oakland Fire. Right? When you're having a mental health crisis, a police officer probably can't help you. Right? You need services. You need someone to come on scene or us to get you to somewhere where you can have a clinician help you through that crisis. That's Macro's #1 goal, is to help clear mental health calls from OPD. Macro, in the 2 years that Macro has been around, Macro has run over 35,000? 3,500? 3,500 calls. Like Chief Mitchell said, I'm not gonna give you false information. 3,500 calls for service. Macro is a work in progress. You know, Macro has been a lightning rod for a lot of great information and a lot of false information. So our job as the fire department and my job as the fire chief is to make sure you're getting the proper information. And more importantly, that we're getting the proper information back from you. We want to hear from you about Macro. How is Macro doing? When did you interact with Macro? What did you think? Is Macro doing what we said Macro would do? Being mindful that just like any other 2-year-old, there's a lot of growth to be had, right? You don't leave 2-year-old kids at home by themselves because they're not ready. In that same vein, Macro is not fully flexed into what Macro will ultimately be. Macro will ultimately be at the forefront of our medical services division. As we move forward and we respond to more mental health crises, Macro will be at the front of that. But we want you guys to help us build Macro into what ultimately will be the #1 response model for those types of calls in the country. I surely believe that. And we're reaching out to different entities around the country and getting best practices. What are you guys doing? How are you doing that? How are you making sure your Macro people are safe? What are you doing for de-escalation? What services are you offering? We're leaving no stone unturned when it comes to Macro and building it out right, something that's going to be sustainable for the citizens of Oakland. So we look forward to your feedback, and we will be reaching out to you guys with some public forums so that we can get that feedback from you. In closing, we want to talk a little about what I'm near and dear to is the citizens of Oakland. Having grown up here, it's important to me that as a fire department, we have one of the most diverse fire departments in the country. And that doesn't just happen. We had a conversation on the way in the door about how many female captains do we have in our department.
How many?
I think we have 6, which is not enough. But we continue to actively recruit, get firefighters in the door. We just graduated a class of 33, which was part of our SAFER grant, and it's one of the most diverse classes you will ever see. And that doesn't just happen by rolling the carpet out and saying, come on in and test. We actively recruit because we want to make sure that our fire department reflects our community. So in closing, I want to say, we are looking for Oakland residents to become part of the Oakland Fire Department. So if you have an interest, or you have a cousin or a son or a daughter that has an interest, we're looking for you. Come on in. There's so many different aspects of the fire department that you can be part of and that you can assist the rest of the city with. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Chief. We are going to keep moving. Also, we have, as he mentioned, Elliot Jones, the Director of Macro, is here if there's questions for Macro that come up. So I just wanted to acknowledge you, and I know Chief and I had this conversation earlier. So thank you, Chief, so much for sharing that presentation. We are going to move to our new city administrator. Well, sort of new still. Mr. Justin D. Johnson. Justin came to Oakland in May of 2023 after an exhaustive nationwide search for our next city administrator. He has worked in municipal and county governments for nearly 2 decades, including serving as a Deputy Chief Operating Officer in Atlanta, where he worked closely with public safety agencies and led development of significant capital projects. He also previously served as the Assistant County Manager for the Unified Government of Athens-Clarke County, Georgia, as City Manager of Bisbee, Arizona, and as Management Assistant to the City Manager for the City of Tucson, Arizona. Before this role, he served as IBM's Corporate Social Responsibility Manager. And as a man that I get to work with very closely, very, very grateful for the partnership. Please give a warm welcome to our City Administrator, Justin D. Johnson.
Well, good evening and thank you. I think of all the speakers, I was tasked with being the shortest speaker, so I certainly welcome that opportunity. I wanted to say thank you for just having us here this evening. In my role and capacity, I have the honor of working for Mayor Talbot, also working with all of our council members as we deliver on the policy directives that we've been directed to do. But I also have the responsibility of supporting 3 assistant city administrators and 2 deputy city administrators, and one of which is there in the back, Joe DeVries. I think many of you may know Joe, who is sort of our Swiss Army knife in the city administrator's office, so it's certainly a pleasure to work with him, and also Sean Maher, our citywide communications director. One of the key roles and responsibilities that I also have is making sure that we allocate or reallocate resources, in many respects, human capital, to the right, putting folks in the right place. So it's almost like playing chess. And so that's certainly been a process, but also when I started, if I'm not mistaken, we had about 9 vacancies at the director level, so that's certainly a process in and of itself, and I'm glad we've since landed on our entire executive leadership team. You'll hear from 2 of our key leaders that I've had the opportunity to, 1, bring on board, but 2, also pull over to our office, and that is Harold Duffy, our Assistant City Administrator, who oversees our infrastructure portfolio to include homelessness, as well as Josh Rowan, who is our Director of Transportation, who I also have the pleasure of working very closely with. So you hear more about that as well. I largely want to make sure that I'm here to answer questions that we may have, but also acknowledge those opportunities that we have to improve. In one of our other town halls, one of the things that we heard very much loud and clear is the fact that we don't communicate very well. Probably why I'm divorced now, because I didn't communicate very well in my relationship. So, but at the end of the day, I got loud, Sean. I told you it was gonna work. Transferable skills, exactly. No, but it's certainly, but that's one of the key areas I want to just make sure that we do a much better job in, because I want to make sure that our citizens know exactly what it is we're doing. And one of the key mantras, and I say this over and over again, for us as an organization, very rarely will you hear what we don't have or lack of resources. Everybody knows that, but what are we doing with what we have? And in many respects, it also takes key partnerships, and we heard that from our chief, from Chief Mitchell. We've heard very much so that from Chief Covington, but also as we deliver local government services, specifically on other quality of life issues around illegal dumping and homelessness and that sort of thing. And so we have some key partnerships that we hopefully will have the opportunity to grow a bit more, just to make sure we are delivering at the very basic level that our residents and many of you are asking us to do. So with that, I will stop and allow the rest of my team to introduce themselves, and we'll certainly answer questions where necessary.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Harold Duffy, and I have the pleasure of working for the Mayor Tao and Justin Johnson. Before I start, I want to ask a question. Brooklyn, how much time do I have?
6 minutes.
Okay, so I'm going to...
Well, that's between you and Josh.
I'm not going to talk about how much time I don't have. I want to be effective in the time that I have. Okay, here we go. So, how many people in the room have trash service? Raise your hand. Trash service, trash service. Everybody's hand should be raised for trash service. Right, you know what? And if you don't have trash service, the city will sign you up for trash service and charge you more for that. So the question becomes, where's all this trash coming from? If everybody has trash service, including bulky item collection, and you can also drive to Davis Street once a year and dump for free, where's all this trash coming from? So, if I were to ask the same question to the commercial businesses, I would get 85 to 90% of the hands would go up in the room. That means that there are 10% of the people or businesses that don't have trash service. Now, they could be generating trash, and we don't know where that trash is going. Or do we know where that trash is going? On the side of the hill, behind some other business, so on and so on and so on. So what can we do about that? As a resident, what you can do is, you ever see those guys in a truck where they want to haul your stuff away for 50 bucks? Listen, that's way too cheap. They're taking that stuff and they're dumping it somewhere. If you own a property and you hire a handyman, at the end of the month you're cleaning somebody out of your property. If they're too cheap, guess what they're doing? They're dumping that trash somewhere else. And ultimately, you are going to be the responsible party for that. So one of the things that you need to do is, one of the gentlemen told me this a long time ago, it's really very important. He said, if you hire somebody to haul your stuff away, don't pay them until they come back with that ticket, with that dump slip ticket. That's very, very important. So I used to be the public works director in the City of Oakland. About 658 employees, great men and women. About 60 of them are working on illegal dumping, hauling the stuff away. Listen, last year they hauled 20,000 tons of illegal dump material. That's about 35 pounds of trash for every person in the City of Oakland that was illegally dumped every year. And we also have service work orders. You know about 311, right? 311, you guys know about that? So we get about 26 to 30,000 of those calls every year that we have to try to collect. And so that's our way of really trying to get a handle on the illegal dumping aspect. So I said, well, what can you do to help us with this? So make sure that you take advantage of calling Waste Management and getting your bulky item collection once a year. Actually, you can get it twice a year if you really want it, it that way. And as I said before, you can also drive to Davis Street and show your ID that you're an Oakland resident, and you can dump for free. There's absolutely no reason why a resident of Oakland should be illegal dumping material throughout the city. Next, I want to talk about illegal dumping. Homeless encampments. think the mayor mentioned that earlier, but let me just tell you how we approach the situation. So, you see people who are unhoused in tents or on the street. The mayor talked about our compassionate approach. So our approach is this: take them off the street, provide them with a temporary shelter. As part of that shelter, they get wraparound services. There's clinicians that help them find out if they have medical issues or they qualify for Social Security, whatever, and they're required to do a housing plan. And once they do that, they are then offered permanent or temporary affordable housing. This mayor has committed over $200 million in affordable housing bonds, supported by you guys, Measure U, Measure KK. Thank you very much for that support. One of my responsibilities in my business lines is actually being responsible for overseeing all of the vertical and horizontal development with the City of Oakland. That's the public sector. So everything, every new library, every new community center, every new road, and Josh will talk about that later on, but I'm helping oversee that along with homeless encampment. So I do want you to know that every single person and every encampment that we shut down is offered shelter.
Does substance use?
They're offered shelter, and they're also offered guidance to be able to support them and getting them from the streets into permanent affordable housing. Now, the City of Oakland, which is 29% of the Alameda County's population, has 58% of the homeless population. That's not fair. That's not right. Also, we have 58% of the bed space. So we are doing more than just our part. And so our goal is to really handle this from a humane standpoint. I think the city's numbers will show that we are doing exactly just that. Oh, Josh, I'm taking your time. Okay, anyway, so what can you do? There's also something called Adopt a Spot. How many people are familiar with that? Adopt a Spot. So Adopt a Spot in the back room, right outside, you can actually find an area of the city that you want to adopt. It could be a corner that gets illegal dumping. We'll give you tools, another trash can, and you can put it out with your regular trash can, but that's a way for you to help us. Even though Public Works has 635 people, we still need your help. It really is a partnership. And also too, the mayor started a plan called Oakland Fresh. What Oakland Fresh is, and we'll get more into this, is it really is us taking our services and concentrating them in one area, so when we leave that area, you see a visible change, where we're gonna go in, we're gonna cut, clean, clip, paint, and walk away with a partnership with the community to help us maintain that. So thank you for that. I'm available. Any questions afterwards?
Well, thank you, Harold. In the next 12 seconds, I'll do my very best to give a thorough presentation on the Oakland Department of Transportation. My name's Josh Rowan, started in April. I'm the director for the Oakland Department of Transportation. One of my goals in these town hall meetings is to provide a little bit about myself and something new in each one. So I've shared that my father was an engineer and my mother was an artist. And so when you see me wandering around lost, it comes very naturally because I'm a creative nerd. The other thing that I would share, and when we meet, I want you to bring this up. I'm also a 2-time Georgia Tech dropout. But then I graduated, so go Jackets. So let's talk about Oakland Department of Transportation. I want you to think of a coin, two sides of the coin. There's the typical streets and sidewalks. We pave the streets, we fix the sidewalks, we fix the potholes, and this team is performing exceptionally well. The slide behind me, a lot of numbers on there, but I want you to look at the 10-year statistics from 08 to 18. I think I'm blocking your view there. Roughly speaking, 10 years, Oakland paved 100 miles of its streets. The last 4 months, we paved 40 miles. We did in 4 months what used to take 4 years. And that's an amazing feat by some very dedicated employees who take great pride. I meet so many people within the department who tell me, I was born here and I'm really proud to serve this community. So the other one I want to share, and I know it's front of mind with a lot of people, now we can argue later about how Oakland technically doesn't have potholes because the temperature doesn't get cold enough, but nerd alert. This past year, we repaired 53,000. So compared to that 10-year total of 81,000, a lot is getting done. So very, very excited and proud for the performance of the team. So now let's flip this coin over, because what's happening in major American cities, and Oakland's no different, is your Department of Transportation is actually a public health agency. When you look at things such as the bad driver behavior, I think we've all been impacted by speeding, by crashes, the sideshows, all of the things that we have to deal with, the abandoned autos. These are things in the right of way that are very troubling, and they're causing a lot of health concerns within the city of Oakland. And so we are actually dedicating resources within the team to focus on what can we do from a policy perspective, because these aren't like potholes where we can go find one spot and fix it. These are citywide policy initiatives that we have to look at to start changing behaviors. And we're not alone. This is really a problem that if you folded the United States in half would be below the fold. It's patterned after car-centric development throughout the 60s and 70s, and we're no different. Oakland was built around the automobile, and we're seeing some of those results. And so I have one ask today, one simple ask. I want you to go next time and talk to your friends, your family. Just pick 10 people who you know, but you have to know them very well, because I don't want you to get punched in the nose. And I want you to ask them to stop speeding. Because if we will stop speeding, we will not only save lives, but we will save Oakland a lot of money. And depending on which studies you read, 80 to 90% of our friends are speeding. I know nobody in here is speeding, which is why I'm asking you to go ask others to keep it around 25, 30 miles an hour. The physics is very simple. 40 miles an hour, if I'm struck by an automobile, I have a 10% chance of survival. At 20 miles per hour, that goes up to 90%. So we've got to get the speeds down in Oakland. And so if you recall during the pandemic, the city rolled out the slow streets. I want to start talking about slow neighborhoods and eventually the slow city, because we really don't need, we've confused top speed with travel time. And so that wraps it up for me today. I'm really excited to be here and look forward to getting to know everyone. Hopefully I kept it under my 13 seconds as I was allotted. So thank you.
Pretty good on time. We have 30 minutes until we leave. And the rest of the time is pretty much for your questions, and we'll close out some closing comments potentially. And then I also want to say that these good folks will be around for a little bit afterwards if you want to come introduce yourself or have a specific question that they can follow up on. Just as I get into this, if you did come a little later, some of your questions might have already been answered. Again, please make sure that your emails are there so that folks can get the responses in writing as well, or for the questions that we weren't able to get to. So I'm going to start with you, Josh, with some questions about transportation and prioritization. So folks are noting the potholes in this area, and it says that they have to wait until 2026 to get some support up here around the streets. And they want to know why is it 2026?
So specific to potholes, things are going to change regarding that. I'm sure you saw the article about the amount that Oakland has paid out for lawsuits related to bicycle crashes. So what we do is we look at everything through an equity lens, which we think is very important to look at how communities have been disproportionately affected through the history of Oakland. So that's an important thing to us. We look at condition assessment, we also look at the high equity areas. But what we found is there seems to be a blind spot when it comes to risk. And so when you look at really the amount that was paid out, what we came to the conclusion was there was a lot of good we could have done with that money. And so what many may not know is we spent probably 6 weeks cataloging what we thought were high-risk potholes to cyclists in the hills and sent our crews up to fix as many of those as we had within the 311 system. And so we've taken our bicycle and pedestrian safety team and have said, go through the 311 data, and admittedly there are some old service requests in there, and have said, look at this through a lens of risk. Where are these, and what we talk about is where are we breaking axles, and where are we causing injury? And so you're going to see some changes. It's a 311 system, we appreciate the data we get, but quite often it ends up being sort of a first in, first out, and we miss some of the important information. And so, like I mentioned, we did repair 53,000 of them, so it's not like we're sitting in the shop just waiting to do 1 or 2 a day. So there is a lot of damage that needs to be repaired. But the one thing that you will see that will change will be as we attempt to assess risk, as the potholes start to impact your everyday life. And that changes things in the hills versus the flatlands, especially these steep inclines.
Okay, so the follow-up question is about the bonds. Did we spend up all the bond money, or what's the status of the bond money?
No, we have not spent up all the bond money. We're still working on paving under Measure U.
Okay, so that took care of about 3. All right. So this question, there's a number of questions, but one of them is about partnership with Caltrans, the county, the city, the other folks who are involved in transportation. Can you speak to any of those partners?
Sure. Transportation at the municipal level is a very heavy stakeholder-driven business, from the really starting with you all, the residents who we impact, the businesses we impact. We deal very, very frequently with AC Transit, Caltrans, the port, where we're actually looking at better engagement with our partners, and how we assign those responsibilities. Historically, ODOT had kind of had a all hands on deck approach to different partners. What we're doing now is we're kind of tiering them and saying the director's responsible for this portfolio of partners, assistant directors are responsible for these specific partners, because that partnership becomes so important in getting things done, because we really don't do anything alone. Right now, where we're really focusing on is, if you look nationally, there are actually presentations about this, about how most municipalities and transit agencies don't get along. And we're working with AC Transit to say, we're going to break that model. Let's come to the table. We want to support transit, because the future of Oakland depends on their service being as efficient and as rapid as possible. We have some issues in the right-of-way, without a doubt, but we're really laying our cards on the table and being transparent with each other, and are off to a good start. And so we're doing that with Caltrans, we're doing that with the port. We have some significant projects with both coming up. A lot of major projects coming. I would be remiss if I didn't mention ACTC. A lot of money being spent in the city of Oakland by our transportation partners. So that relationship is very important.
All right. Thank you, Director. I think we'll move into some questions about homelessness and encampments. So that's probably going to be...
So give Harold about 14 seconds.
All right. Appreciate you all so much, and appreciate all these questions. Some of you all have similar questions, so I'm trying to cluster them. Some of them, there's only one, so we're going to get to as many as we can, but again, we'll follow up via email. So one of the questions about encampments, one of them is specifically, maybe Mary, you can answer this, about Wood Street or whoever, is where did those folks end up? Do we have any idea?
Yeah, so Wood Street was hundreds of people, and that encampment was de facto the place that people were getting pushed off this, within the city of Oakland onto this area. There was a lot of residential spaces there too. The people who took shelter, we gave them to folks at the county that is sponsored by the county, so nonprofit organizations. And so they did their wraparound services. They ended up going to different kinds of programming. And then from that point, those different programming will keep track of their success in regards to getting them housed in a permanent shelter or getting them the permanent supportive housing specific shelter. I want to be very clear that this housing crisis that we're going through, it's not going to be resolved overnight. It's going to take a lot of resources because we have zero permanent supportive housing. And let's just be very honest, there are a lot of people out there who cannot live on their own and be able to work or pay rent or what have you. And so without the infrastructure, because during the Reagan administration, way back when, they took away all the funding for mental illness, mental health services, and permanent supportive housing. And so through Prop 1 that was passed, some of those funding from the state is being taken to be allocated towards permanent supportive housing. But of course, it takes years for that housing to be built out. And so right now, I'm working with the county because the City of Oakland, we don't have a public health agency or department, right? We don't have social services. These are services we do not deliver. It is bestowed upon the county. The county draws down money from the feds and from the state, and it is their job to actually give the money to the different cities. Here in the City of Oakland, what I'm advocating for is I want the county board of supervisors to understand that we are not only the largest city in Alameda County, and so if we're getting our fair share via population size, that's not equitable. Because you don't see Dublin standing up homeless shelters, you don't see Fremont standing up safe parking structures. It's all here in Oakland. So when you saw the point in time count around the increase of homelessness in Oakland, guess what? It's because the county have bought, old hotels here, and these programs are being run by the county, and every other city is sending their unhoused to the City of Oakland. And that is not okay. It is not fair. And so what I've told my guys to do is collect the data. As San Francisco is doing their full sweep, we're going to fill it. We already know this. As the governor is calling for a mandate to clear all state properties, where are they going to go? They're going to come into the City of Oakland. And so we are keeping track who's coming in because I am at the point of being litigious. If you're coming from San Francisco, we will sue San Francisco for funding because you can't just push people into our city. With that being said, we're still going to continue to offer shelter to those who live on their streets, but you must move off of our sidewalks, you must move out of our parks. We gotta make sure that our kids, I come from a kid's point of view lens. If my kid, as a single mom, if I would not allow for my son to go into a park because there is an encampment and I don't know how that person's feeling that day, that takes resources away from me as a person who lives in the city, and that is not okay. These are for vulnerable families. Families need to be able to get to their parks, utilize their parks, walk to school without seeing feces and without seeing tents. So when you start seeing RVs, broken RVs, or nasty RVs that are spilling out, toxic waste, we got to get them off of our streets. So we're working closely with Caltrans to ensure that, and other agencies. I'm really putting the pressure on other agencies that are close to encampments to really give us some resources so we can not just shut down the encampment, but fence, like real fencing around the encampment so they don't come back, because that's how we save money. So we're actually prioritizing large encampments that we know are being run by gangs. We know that. People are being harmed through this. So we're shutting those encampments down first. And these are large encampments like MLK. Everybody knows the MLK encampment. East 12th Street, which they're just building de facto housing there. That's dangerous for them and dangerous for us. So again, we're not gonna be as harsh as San Francisco, where we're just gonna do sweeps without telling people. We'll go out there and offer them housing and resources. But again, if you don't move by the time we come to clean up and close down the encampment, we will have to force you to leave.
Thank you, Mayor. So related to homelessness, I appreciate this question asking specifically about our young people who are homeless and talking about Dreamcatcher closing. Mayor, I know we were involved in that. I don't know if you want to start. I could definitely finish. I'll take it. Okay. So homeless young people, the first thing that I'll say is that The biggest gap here is our 18 to 24-year-olds. Those are called transition age youth. And when they graduate from high school, many of them, about 50% of them, become what we call disconnected youth. And that means that they graduated, they cross that stage, but it's almost like crossing a plank. You just fall off. You're immediately disconnected from any type of resource because you're not in school, you're not employed, you're just kind of out here trying to survive. And that can lead them into being victims of crime. It can lead them into being perpetrators of crime. It can lead them into being victims of sex trafficking. Our LGBTQ youth are disproportionately homeless. And so one of the things that we're working on is actually building a hub for that age group, 18 to 24-year-olds. And it's basically a mini college campus for the kids who don't go to college. I know I have two 17-year-olds who are considering their next steps. They just started their seniors at Ojai and at Tech. And every family's trying to figure out if the four-year college route makes the most sense. Even folks who have access to resources and privilege are questioning that route because it's highly unaffordable for the majority of Americans. So we are trying to fill that gap. What about our young people who aren't going to go to a four-year college? And in Oakland, that's 50% of our graduates. And so we have not built a runway for those young people. They just fall off. And oftentimes we see them, and unfortunately they feed into some of our systems. So we're working on building a hub right across from Laney College at the old OUSC administration building. It's called the CTE Hub. And it will, and the idea is to fill that gap. So that's one. As far as Dreamcatchers is concerned, Dreamcatchers, for those of you who don't know, is the only minor shelter that we have in all of Alameda County, actually. And the provider Covenant House decided to focus on the 18 to 24-year-old population that they had been providing services for. Dreamcatchers for minors, so under 18. And so they basically said we're no longer going to run Dreamcatcher. So we have what's called the Mayor's Advisory Council on Human Trafficking, the MATCH, and members of that committee came to us with this concern immediately because, as we know, housing instability makes you vulnerable to sex trafficking and human trafficking. And so they came to us, brought it up. We were able to work with various partners. We held a whole meeting at the mayor's office, and I'm happy to report that Ruby's Place is going to be taking over services for Dreamcatcher. It's taking some time, but we were able to help facilitate that work. In the meantime, Dreamcatcher, which is actually a couple of blocks from the PAB, from the police department, in a cul-de-sac right close to Washington, they still have services there, so the health center is still there, and they're open every day, available. And then also Ruby's Place, who's going to be providing services there as soon as they get their licensing for this area, they're offering transportation. So if a young person comes to Dreamcatcher looking for Dreamcatcher, they will provide transportation to another location in order to, just while we're bridging that before Ruby's Place can get up and going. So thank you for that question. A lot of times people leave out our young people when it comes to homelessness and human trafficking, so thank you for that. The next question, I'm going to get to a couple of ones that aren't necessarily DOT, encampment, or crime. And so there's a question here, Mayor, about the like bringing in additional resources, as you talked about. We know we don't have enough of a lot in the city, and so additional resources is important. So folks want to know what's the status of the deal with the Coliseum, for example, and where are we with that?
Yes. And so the Coliseum deal is important for multiple reasons. We've been working on this deal for the past couple of years. As you may all have heard, we have a huge budget deficit. I want to be very clear. This didn't come up because of this budget deficit. Many large cities across the state of California and the state of California itself is going through huge deficits because of post-pandemic. But in that regard, the Coliseum, again, I see this place as a place where we can develop. Right now, I mean, for example, we had 3 professional sports teams. I cannot believe that the whole Hagenberger corridor is not developed. We're saying that people will come to these games, baseball, football, basketball, and we are not actually absorbing any of those tax dollars after people are done watching because we don't have bars, we don't have restaurants or anything that's developed out there. So we're losing this new stream of money. And so with that being said, that it's important for us to develop that area. Again, Hagenberger is a priority corridor for me. The Coliseum sale, it's going really well. Don't want to jinx it, but you all may hear something come sometime this week. Okay, so it's going really, really well. You will hear an update. Is that all I can say, right, Casey? All right. So coming from my comms person.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, let's talk about the Chase policy. I know it's something that many residents have been asking about. I would encourage everyone to try to inform yourself as much as possible. So thank you for being here tonight. Chief, what can you say about the chase policy? I'm also happy to add some details.
Yeah, so I know it's been said quite a bit that the City of Oakland has a no chase policy, and that is incorrect. We have a very comprehensive pursuit policy, but it doesn't allow us to chase in certain instances, but we are allowed to pursue suspect vehicles. One of the things that I've been working on with the commission through their ad hoc is to make sure that our pursuit policy is in line with what's going on in the region. You know, what is Hayward's pursuit policy? What is San Francisco's pursuit policy? What is Alameda pursuit policy? We do not have the most restrictive pursuit policy, but we do have a restrictive pursuit policy. So I think that's the key. Is, I've heard several times people say we have a no pursuit policy, and that's just not correct.
Yes, and I think my kind of call to action to all of you is that the police commission is considering this right now, and if the policy is going to change, is it not going to change? They really need to hear from everyone because we all live here and we're all going to live with the decision. If the police commission decides to loosen the criteria for police to chase, there's a good chance that there will be more traffic fatalities. It's just going to happen. It's not if, it's when. And that's true. However, it's also true that the quality of life can be impacted by putting limitations on police in order to chase. So it's something that's very, very important. I was kind of disappointed that the police commission had their meeting to talk about this, and there were like 10 people there. So we need to do a better job, and they need to do a better job of getting the word out to engage residents. So I'll just say that, but please dial in on this because we're all going to be, dealing with whatever the decision is. So that would be my call to action.
I think you have to say how to find this stuff out.
Yeah, I agree. And the police commission, as you all know, or maybe you don't know, is an independent body. They have their own everything, and so we try to help as much as we can, but they run their own show.
And I think if you look at their
Yeah.
website, they post where they're having all of these
Yeah.
ad hocs and these meetings, and they have a commission meeting every 2 weeks. And just like Brooklyn said, it's important for you to have your voice heard in regards to these specific topics. But understand, we value in the Oakland Police Department, we value very much the sanctity of life. And we're going to take that into consideration. This is not going to be a drastic change with the pursuit policy, but there are things within our policy that we believe need to be looked at so we are more in line with what is going on in the region. So, but it's not going to be, you take the training wheels off and you just run and chase everything out there. That's not what we're looking for. We're just looking for something that is more in line with what's going on within the region.
Thank you, Chief. And I accept the suggestion for us helping. So for our comms team in here, Brandon, Casey, we could do a good job of trying to repost when the commission has these meetings, at least to our platform, so good folks can
And a
find
clear
out.
agenda, please, because the agenda is not clear as well.
Exactly.
The agenda for the police commission? Uh-huh.
The committee agendas are not also posted.
Yeah, so we'll take that feedback back to them.
That's
Thank
a
you for that.
sunshine issue.
What's that?
How many drones do we have, if any, for OPD?
You want to answer that?
We have 19 operators, and I want to say either 17 or 19 drones right now.
All right, and while you're up, Chief, what are we doing to train, it says civilian staff, but is it civilian staff, or maybe this question is, are we training civilian staff to provide CEPTED, crime prevention through environmental design, audits and evaluations for our businesses?
I'm not sure that our non-sworn staff is trained in CEPTED or crime prevention through environmental design. I know that we have several officers that are trained to do that, and they will come out to your home or your business to look at your facility and give you ideas in regards to what you can do to improve or harden the structure to make it less likely to be a victim of crime.
All right, thanks, Chief. We're gonna go to their question on macro. So this is our director of macro, Elliot, and he's gonna answer the question we had about macro.
Hi, everybody. I love coming to these things. I get promoted every time. How we doing this evening? We doing okay? I know this is long, so I'm going to do my best to get into this as quickly as I can. My name is Elliot Jones. I'm the program manager from the Mobile Assistance Community Responders of Oakland, or the macro program. Again, the first question, I have 3 quick questions here. Why is macro under police and not fire? Well, as you guys know, the history of macro was that this was a program that was demanded by different groups all throughout this city. And when it came down to where it was going to live, my boss, and at the time the fire chief, at a council meeting on an unrelated issue, were in the room when it was said, this sounds like it should live in fire. And then it lived in fire. The one thing about the City of Oakland is sometimes groups have to step up when there's an innovative program like this on the line. And I would say the best thing that happened to this program, it is living in fire because the fire department responds to every call. And if we want to develop an alternative response program that is going to truly alleviate the pressure on our emergency services, it made sense to live in fire. My boss, the head of the medical my direct boss, because my other one's here, the head of and the other one too, the head of the medical services division, she has helped not only start EMT programs throughout the county, she has been a lifelong paramedic, 30 years in the streets. So developing something new that is still only 2.5 years old, we are in the right place and in the right hands so that this can be a permanent part of the public safety infrastructure here in the City of Oakland. The second question here is maybe my favorite of the night. It's macro is supposed to alleviate police department, but how do you rationalize macro costing 5 times more than police for a macro response? Now, this reminds me of the old Abraham Lincoln quote, don't believe everything you read on the internet. So there is no universe where a macro response is 5 times more than a police response. If you put an officer or even 2 officers in a car, 2 macro employees, the cost of their salaries, the equipment and everything, it does not reach that threshold. But more importantly, when macro responds, it more often than not, and I mean 98% of the time, it means OPD is not going to respond. So their resources are now not being dedicated to the call that they should not be going on. And if you look at the stop data starting, all the way back to 2019, and when macros came into fruition in 2022, we are starting to see all OPD stops go up. But the community caretaking calls, those that are most suited for macro, are going down. And I hope to one day come and sit in front of you with my chiefs behind me and be able to say they were doing 11 or 13% of their calls on community concern, now they're doing 3. Because every time they're not dealing with something like that, they're able to focus on violent crime. They're able to focus on property crimes. So our existence means that they are not being put in positions that, to be frank, are a waste of resources. We also have more time in macro to be able to make these connections, to spend time with an individual, to get to know them, to truly embody the motto of Oakland of love life. So this is something that we will continue to grow, we will continue to foster, and with a little bit of everybody had to ask, my ask is patience. Because in 5 years, we'll be looking back on this, it'll be what else can macro do? In 50 years, when I definitely won't be sitting up here, it'll just be a part of the city, serving, helping, caring. And that's truly important. And finally, this is even a better question. What other cities have successfully implemented a long-term alternative response program? Well, the granddaddy of them all is Cahoots up in Washington State. But I will tell you this, Oregon. Eugene, Oregon. Yeah. But I will tell you this. We've had at least 25 different municipalities come to Oakland to learn how we're doing this here. Richmond is about to launch theirs. They came and did a ride-along with the City of Oakland to see how we were going to do it. We've hosted San Jose, Tacoma, Washington. We've hosted Long Beach, California, Miami, Florida, 2 cities in Michigan. We just had Fayetteville, Arkansas come and do a ride-along. We've sat on panels with folks in New York. We've sat on panels and folks from all over the country that are trying this. And if you want to ask me maybe what the most amazing model that we were able to learn from, it was Albuquerque, New Mexico. But the one thing you find is that nobody is doing it the same because our communities are not the same. Now, we are all more alike than we are unalike, but the challenges everywhere are unique to where you live. And so what we have done to prioritize in macro is the non-emergent, low-acuity, quality of life calls that historically have required hours and hours cumulative of our police and our fire resources. But if we can show up, get to know you a little bit, find out what's going on, and alleviate your challenge before it ever escalates. That's what we can do. And when it comes to connecting to resources, I don't think anybody standing up here in this room would argue that there is enough in Oakland. But if we let perfect be the enemy of good, we won't do anything. So we have to work with what we've got. If everybody raised their hand and said, I want help, we couldn't do it. But as they're ready, Macro is there to make that connection. And it's a lot easier for that to stick is if you decide to do it. Not being forced, not being pushed, but given a chance, given some dignity to say, I am ready to get help. So I can tell you this, as long as I got some bones in my body and breath, I'm an Oakland kid. I'm gonna be here doing this. And Macro's not going anywhere. And I thank you for your support. And if you see us, wave us down and talk to the team. It means a lot to know that you guys are watching and that you care. So,
How do we reach you?
great question. I forgot about that. There's 3 ways to reach Macro. One, if you do call 911, you can get a Macro response, but that is not preferred. We prefer you call Macro, and we have a direct phone line in the Fire Dispatch Center, and that number is 510-44-MACRO. 510-44-MACRO, and if I have to do the numbers, 510-446-2276. But because nothing should be emergent, nothing should be violent, you should have also time to sit back and maybe send an email. And if you can email macro@oaklandca, and I'll give the number in a minute, ma'am. I'm going to say it about 6 more times. If you have time to sit back and write an email, macro@oaklandca.gov, 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 it'll go directly to our teams. And that'll also give us a way to track an interaction over time, especially if it's a reoccurring thing. And finally, because my time is up, the phone number is 510-446-2276. 510-44-MACRO. Thank you, everybody.
All right, so we are right at 7:30. I want to acknowledge, first of all, thank you. Can you give it a round of applause for you guys yourselves? I would not be mad at you. No, seriously, this has been a long time coming. We've been trying to plan this for a while. We needed time for our chief to get his feet under him, but also these people are the busiest people in the city, and so getting everyone on the calendar for 1 week has been challenging, but it only means anything if you all show up. So thank you so much for taking the time in your evening for this. For those of you whose questions didn't get answered, like I said, we're going to follow up. As we close out, I have a few calls to action. First of all, thank you to the people who just simply wrote, what can I do to help? You know, I have this resource, so I'm a guy. So yeah. And if we didn't get to your very specific question, hopefully some of the general information that was shared kind of helped you to better understand whatever situation you're looking to get clarity around. The 2 calls to action. One is, how many of you all are signed up for AC Alerts? AC Alerts pretty good, better than the last town hall. So let's keep that going. Please share it with your neighbors. Obviously that gives us good alerts when it comes to the natural disasters and other things. The other thing is something that our director talked about in terms of adopt a spot. So in the back, there's some information. Again, the way that works is the city will come help do an initial clean, provide you tools, but it's up to your neighbors and everyone to help maintain that cleanliness so it doesn't just go back to being what it was before. And then, and just making sure that your emails are all there. That's all I have. I don't know if anyone else has any close, so just thank you so much. Please let everyone know about our next ones. We'll be at Fremont High tomorrow and Allen Temple Baptist Church on Thursday.
Are you inviting any council members to these meetings?
Council members are aware. Obviously, they're on the legislation side of the house. This is the administration side of the house. So, they're welcome to come. We had one of ours at the West Oakland. So, and it was sent to everybody. Yeah. This is one come all. So thank you all very much and have a great rest of your evening.